put on your shalwars. This is indecent, really. No, no, not that. That is my yashmak. Yeah, here they are. Get them on. Oh, you are at the wrong end. Turn them over, na? Then again through the window to her husband. In a minute. What have I done with my slippers? I cannot find them. In a whisper to the grandee, hide in the chest. Chapter 26 to be continued. The thief crept after him. The bazaar, being open to the sun, was filled with a dry, breathless heat. The money changer, puffing and perspiring profusely, turned down a by-street where only the rich dwelt, as the carved walnut wickets in the blank walls bore witness. Here and there over the walls hung apricot boughs laden with golden fruits, or a grape vine draped in tender young leafage, shining greenly in the sun. The hum and roar of the bazaar were muffled by the distance, and a deep peace reigned here. Quiet, unbroken by the fussy cries of the woman and the squalling of infants, which are such a necessary feature of the dwelling of the poor. Even the water here flowed down the fences with a timid murmur and slid softly without the usual gurgling eddies into the wooden troughs that carried it into the yards from the main ariq. The one-eyed thief knew Kokand well, but had never been in this by-street before. He made a note of all the turnings and bends, just in case. They passed on Old Mosque and crossed a narrow, hunchbacked footbridge. At the next turning, the street came to an end. In the distance, one could see the cemetery in a fringe of greenery. Here, directly facing a small pool with trees growing around it, stood the money changer's house. The money changer knocked on the wicket with a ring-shaped iron knocker. Tuck, tuck, tuck. The wicket was opened by an old man, a servant. The thief noted. One or several? We shall wait and learn. He retired to the pool, lay himself down in the shade, pulled his skull cap over his face, and feigned sleep. He had to wait a long time. The sun had shifted in the sky, and its low, broad beam now struck the pool, lighting up the greenish depths, which were swarming with all kinds of water insects, myriad of tiny lives, palpitant solar dust that seemed to have been brought hither by this amber-hued sunbeam out of cosmic space. The one-eyed waited. Patience was an essential attribute of his calling. He could, when need be, imitate the cat, that will sometimes still at night over the mouse hole without twitching a whisker. And his patience was rewarded. The wicket creaked and opened, and he beheld the money changer. He was now without his bag, but the silken girdle around his rope Mukamarbanchi slipped down to his thighs, weighed down on both sides by heavy purses. Behind the money changer's back, the thief caught a glimpse of a woman's face, uncovered by a yashmak. Large black eyes, heavily blackened eyebrows, and long braids. The beautiful Arzi Bibi, wife of the money changer, guessed the thief. He thought of the poor widow who had lost her jewels, thought of the grandee with his swaggering, irresistible moustache, threaded upon the sharp, twisted end of which one could almost imagine scores of flaming female hearts. The thief listened with bated breath. When shall you return? Arzi Bibi asked crossly in her deep, velvety voice. Am I to weary myself again with waiting till late in the night? Wondering whether aught has befallen you. What can befall me? Retorted the money changer. I am going to the most worthy Wahid to play a game of dice. Last time he won 370 tangas from me, and I desire to make good my loss. Sesadu Aftad tanga burdazma zipesh ma mekhayem or pas bigram. That means till night again? She exclaimed. By Allah, your dice will reduce us to the beggar's bag. Go! I have become used to being neglected and lonely. Not a single evening can you spare for me? Not a single one? As future events will show, she had been thinking of nothing else the whole day long but of how to get rid of her fat, tiresome husband. But who, in his place, catching the sound of tears and suppressed jealousy in her voice, would have dared to let such an unworthy suspicion taint his mind? Dice, horses, the bazaar. But for me there is no room in your cruel heart. Ya to the bazaar, ya the khimari, ya suari, she said in a tone of deep pain, which may even have been genuine, since women are capable of convincing themselves as well as their husbands of the sincerity of their lies. And a circumstance that lends peculiar force to their perfidies. She slammed the wicket and went indoors. The money changer puffed, mopped his face and the back of his fat neck with a handkerchief, moved his thick lips soundlessly, as if continuing in imagination the conversation with his wife. Then, with an angry grunt, he walked off to Wahid to win back his 370 tangas. All this time, the thief had not stirred a limb, nor interrupted for a second his feigned snore. But had anyone happened to peer up into his face under the skull cap at that moment, he would have recoiled, mazed with fear, exclaiming, "What do I see? Is it possible for any eye but shaitans to glare with such a piercing yellow light?" The one-eyed was seized with a larcenous fever. Thieving thoughts flickered in his mind. one after another, like flashes of July lightning in the mountains. The leathern bag then remained in the house. Where was it hidden? Was the house ever left empty for at least 5 minutes? The wicket opened once more. Two came forth into the road. The old doorkeeper, Darbani Pir, whom the thief had already seen, and after him, yawning, stretching and dragging his feet, a second servant of slightly younger age, sleepy-eyed and disheveled, with a Chinese painted picture in his hands. Now she fancies fresh dates, if you please. Begum Sahiba gufta ki khurmai taza da kara, grumbled the old man, taking out a pumpkin snuff box and shaking it into the palm of his hand, and a sizable pinch of nas, a spicy, stupefying mixture of tobacco, lime, and sundry other potent drugs. Go and get them, she says. Wherever you will, azar jai paida karni war paida ko. Magar thaza khurma basha. He opened his mouth and shot the dose of a nas under his tongue with a deft movement, clapping his hands over his mouth. May shaitan take her together with her dates. Where am I to find them? He spoke now like a paralytic, with the use of his lips alone, his tongue being engaged in the business of pressing down the nas in his mouth. And me, she has sent for Indian sharbat. The younger servant said in a sleepy, snuffling voice, rubbing his puffy eyes with his fist. A man cannot get any sleep, taking aim at a bumblebee sitting on a bough. The old man squirted forth a long stream of juicy green spittle, but missed the mark. The bumblebee took wing. I tell you what, said the old man, let us go and sit in some chaikhana. Then go home separately and say that we found nothing. You shall sit and I shall take an hour's nap. Tu bedar bash, ma ginta khawnum kho, the other said, overjoyed. So saying, they both departed. Barely had the thief had time to digest their words, ere the wicket opened again, and two young servant girls, their faces uncovered, came tripping forth into the roadway. They flew out like birds from a cage. And at once fell to turning and twisting, preening themselves, twittering, babbling away with amazing rapidity, as if they had 10 tongues each, instead of one, behind the pearly teeth in those tiny coral mouths. The thief listened, albeit with a grimace of distaste. She has simply taken leave of her senses. Chirped the first. She's sending me to Colonel Sharbat for her embroideress, as if she cannot wait till tomorrow, when the embroideress will come herself. And me, she is sending to Arab Square, to her lace maker. Chattered the second. I cannot understand this sudden urgency for lace. Can't you? Have you forgotten the illustrious Camelback? Namu fahmi? Ki morcha rahega? Janabi Camelback aziyat taraf the grande. They both giggled. Ha ha ha. then burst out laughing in ringing voices, their young eyes flashing mirth. I believe we should not go anywhere. Chimagitu, the first servant girl said judiciously. My aunt lives nearby. Let us pay her a visit. We shall talk for an hour or two and make up some excuses for the mistress. Let her sit alone. In an empty house serves her right. Alone, the word seared the thief from head to heel. Alone. If only she could somehow be lured from the house. The voices of the servant girls died away in the distance. Then, all of a sudden, the thief held his breath. Once more, the wicket opened. Verily, this was a lucky day for the thief. The mistress herself, Arzi Bibi, came forth. The thief was afraid to stir, afraid to breathe. He could scarcely believe that his most cherished desire was about to be achieved. Arzi Bibi looked around. She did not notice the thief. Lowering the thick veil so that it could completely conceal her face, she locked the wicket and, her full lips swaying slightly, walked swiftly away in the direction of the bazaar. The thief rose on his elbow and sent after her the soothing flame of his yellow eyes. Now was the time. The road was deserted, the house empty. Extolled be the perfection of Allah, the Almighty and All-Bountiful. I pray Thee to let down the veil of Thy protection over me. Forward! And the thief made for the wall in a couple of huge bounds. O Prophet Muhammad, O refuge of the faith, forward! In a second, the thief was on the wall. Another second, and he was in the yard. He stood listening. No outcries, none had seen him. Chapter 27. According to the custom of the times, all the windows of the house and the door gave upon the garden. The windows were shuttered and bolted from within. And on the door hung a padlock, qulf. But where in all the world were there the locks and bolts that could defy that most expert of thieves? A knife, gleaming in his hands, slipped easily into the opening of the end shutter, pushed forward, then downwards, and with a click and clang the shutter opened. The way to the cherished leathern bag lay free. The thief stepped over the broad low window sill and closed the shutter after him, but did not bolt it. He left himself an easy avenue to escape in case of need. He found himself in a guest chamber, Mehman Khanaya. A storm beam of light falling directly from an aperture in the roof struck sharply upon the rear wall, into which it carved out the bright, colorful pattern of a Turkish carpet. Piles of silk and satin coverlets lay spread around in deep niches, and one small niche in the center contained a hookah mounted in silver. The thief swiftly ransacked all the niches. he found no bag under the rugs and coverlets. He rushed over to the chests. نتاي ليافة إذا كانت نتاي كمبال نتاي بالشت رفت رفي صندوقات, each of which took him no more than 2 minutes to unlock. Ransacked to the bottom and relock. The chests were packed with stuffs of velvet, satin, and brocade, but the thief found not the bag in them. How much is just the bag near? He darted into the next room, then into the third. He went from chest to chest. Everywhere silks, brocades, Morocco, velvets. But where was the bag? One more room. The air in it was heavily perfumed, with odors of musk, ambergris, and attar. And the niches were filled with sprinkling bottles. Khani attar diga boli har taq kasta har niche ek dana bottle du dana bottle araq meshte araqi gulab ay namidunam chis khela. Small coffers and caskets. Cluttered with all kinds of small objects, the room was as cramped as a bird's nest. In a corner under a silk canopy stood a wide, low couch, over which a silver mirror shone dimly in the semi-darkness. The chamber of Azibibi. Guessed the thief. He began to rummage about in the coffers. Oh joy! His eye caught the gleam of gold, the sparkles of gems. He recognized them at once, the jewels of the poor widow. He exulted, yes! What booty could be more righteous than this? He should have been content with what he had found and taken his leave. But the haunting image of the leathern bag dangled temptingly before his inner eye. He looked under the couch and behind the cushions. In the opposite corner stood a large, deep chest. Maybe it was there. It was not even locked. The thief threw back the lid, not save a torn feather bed at the bottom. Khashpash faltu. A curse upon it. Where else could he look? In the chimneys? Indeed, he would have searched all the chimneys and tapped all the walls until he had found the cherished bag. Surely the money changer, on leaving the house, has not made it invisible. By some art of magic, he would have found that bag and seized it. From the yard, as taraf sehen, came the clank of padlock being opened. Crack. The creaking of the wicket. Arzi Bibi had returned. Once more, a lock clanged, now quite near. The front door clicked open. Run! But whither? For all his featness, the thief had not yet learned to pass out of a room through blank walls. The window which he had prepared for his likely escape was far removed, at the far end of the house. The chest. There lay his safety. He dived into it, lowered the lid noiselessly over him, and lay still. He had sat in chests on many an occasion and was accustomed to regard them with a feeling of trust. He made himself comfortable in it and stretched his legs. He felt his pockets, the jewels were with him. He sighed and prepared himself for a long chest sitting. Footfalls in the next chamber. Tap, 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 Saraswati Pai, Avaz Pai Maya. Voices, Saraswati Maya. The door opened. The mistress, the beautiful Arzi Bibi came in, and with her, a man. The thief smiled, a bitter, mirthless smile. Women. But hark, what was that strange clink that accompanied the man's footsteps? All became clear when the thief heard the low but distant voice of the newcomer. It was the illustrious grandee, the handsome camelback, the chief of the watch. It was his medals and his saber that clanked. How cruelly you rend my heart with your unjust reproaches, Camelback said. Continuing a conversation started before. Again and again I repeat, to you alone belongs my heart. And all the fire of my soul belongs to you. Do not lie. Dronagi, interrupted Arzi Bibi. There was a tremor in her deep, velvety voice. Be truthful at least once in your life, at this our last meeting. Our last? But why? Oh, beautiful Sultana of my hearts, you know yourself why. Not so loud, oh matchless Arzi Bibi. Someone may hear us. We are alone in this house. Are you sure? How frightened you are. She laughed offensively. Look yourself. She swished across the room with quick steps. The brass rings of the curtains over the couch jangled. See? See? No one is here. You may look in the chest. The thief shivered. Have a look in those jars too. Arzi Bibi sneered, coming to his rescue. Verily, I credited the illustrious camelback with greater courage. But you are a timid hare, it seems. Touched to the quick, the grandee crossed the chamber from corner to corner with angry strides, filling it with the jingle of his medals. I am not timid, but prudent. You know only too well what a horrible punishment awaits us both. Should we, agar girftar shudi ardimo, khub khabare ki bas kar masha unj bas. When I love, I think not of punishment. Arzi Bibi returned haughtily. Pyar kiya to darna. Farhad feared not danger when he wooed Shirin. And Majnun thought not of punishment when he sought his Layla. However, far be it from me to compare the estimable, albeit over-prudent camelback with Farhad or Majnun. I have invited you hither for other talks. I desire to know the truth. The truth is that which I am endeavoring to reveal to you. I desire to warn you of the danger that threatens us both. The impetuous Arzi Bibi listened not to him. Irrepressibly, the words of bitter rebuke poured from her lips, each heated in the flame of burning jealousy. I desire to know, Ma mechaim khabar shunum, bufamum, why you thought not of punishment ere this, and were wont to come to me at the bidding of your heart. Why have you suddenly become so apprehensive that you have visited me not for 2 weeks? 2 whole weeks. Today, forgetting shame and decorum, I was obliged to go to the bazaar myself and call you from the guard room through an old beggar woman. Tu چرا 2 هفته گمی؟ چی قصه؟ Tell me, why have you begun to shun me and avoid the trysts which, if memory deceives me not, you once found pleasure in? Or haply I am mistaken in this, and you only condescended to me. You are silent. Very well, I shall answer you myself. You love me no more, and my place in your hard and fickle heart now belongs to another, na? That is the true reason. No, do not make excuses. Do not try to lie. Your actions speak clearer than words. Oh, matchless Arzi Bibi, you are mistaken. Oh, blossoming rose of my most cherished thoughts, am I blind not to see your perfections? Am I crazed to bargain you for any other woman? But you did. I swear by my honor, the Izzatim Qasam, by the shades of my noble ancestors. Then why did you not come? What was the reason? Your worthy husband. My husband? But he existed before. Yet there was no obstacle to you. As husband momentous changes have taken place. Do you remember my quarrel with him on account of stolen horses? He was telling me something, but I was sleepy and paid no heed. Am I then to understand that in quarreling with my husband, you have hardened your heart against me? Hear me out. Gabagoshku. He is suspicious. Shakra. Suspicious? He? Yes. He has got wind of our love. He is watching. That is why I came not since those races, although my heart yearned for you like a falcon for the sky. But what have horses, races, and such like stupid diversions of my husband got to do with it? How does all this concern our love? The grandee related to her in a few brief words the gist of the conversation with the soothsayer in the vaults of the watchtower. You remember, oh delight of mine, how he uncovered your face before me? Think you he did that without hidden design? Nay, he was testing us. We gazed at each other, inflamed with mutual love, and he watched our every movement, counted our every heartbeat. Impossible, said Arzi Bibi. That soothsayer of yours is a barefaced liar. I know my husband. I know all his wiles and tricks and thoughts. He watching me secretly? Why, if he only dared. He is, and he dares. No, no, and no, RZBB said with a low laugh. No. Have you been frightened by a shadow? Oh, camel bag. Her voice had a soft cooing quality. Jealousy had drained from her heart. And because of that lying soothsayer, you have made me suffer so much. RZBB, we stand maybe on the brink of a deadly precipice. Odamız bilkul dediniz. Ego kinare ego dana. Ko istadi bacha ke mithan apre. Ana, we are reclining in the blossoming garden of love. Motakyaz de bacha. Tamane bagai ishq. Sit beside me, camelback, and I shall soon prove to you how absurd are your fears. Sit closer, na? Come, Peshbia, come. Are you never going to take off that saber and that prickly robe? But what if someone comes? No one will come. We are alone. And your husband? He has gone to Mechid, the money lender, to play dice. They will sit till late in the night. The thief heard the clink of buckles, the rustle of brocade. The grandee had divested himself of robe and saber. Upon this, the entrancing RZBB began to prove to him the groundlessness of his fears. We shall refrain from describing those proofs. And say merely that they were as diverse as they were protracted. Meanwhile, the stuffy heat within the chest, the maneazi sanduqcha famidi garmi shida khod taft kada had thickened to a painful degree. The thief sat drenched with perspiration. The fluff and feathers clung stickily to his face. Get into his nose and tickle his throat. The lady's ardor gave him 3 opportunities to raise his lid and breathe deeply of the fresh air. The 4th opportunity did not present itself for some time. He was suffocating. Say the fahu. Chance milaw sir zikram bal kana. Magar charam dafa chance milaw nash der shudim dafa. For all his abhorrence of woman, he was ready to jump out of the chest and go to the grandee's aid. Not for the sake of RZBB's charms, but for the sake of air. At last, he raised the lid slightly. Air. Moments of bliss. He breathed deeply, freely, full-chestedly, without the slightest fear of being heard. But hark, what was that strange sound? Was it here in the chamber or without? The sound came from outside. A sound presageful of the calamitous storms. When the thief, lowering the lid, became submerged once more in the dark, and stifling heat and silence reigned once more in the chamber. A silence broken only by the spent sighs of love. Sar sadaya diga lava bacha. The iron ring on the wicket was heard to clang again, and the voice of the money changer cried out, "Why does no one open? Have you all fallen asleep in there?" With that voice, there burst into the chamber the wind of consternation, which began to spin and whirl about and turn everything topsy-turvy. It flung the grandee off the couch and sent chasing about the room in circles like a running hare. "Your husband, Rahim Bhai!" the grandee exclaimed in a low whisper, pattering over the carpeted stone floor with bare heels. "There is no strength nor power but in God, la hawla wa la quwwat, the High, the Great, by Allah. He has caught us. I am lost. I am ruined." At that dread and fateful moment, he thought of none but himself, was concerned only for his own safety, and would as lief have betrayed his lady love if by so doing he could have saved his own skin. Such, with few exceptions, are all voluptuaries. Not so did Arzi Bibi face the danger. She displayed a strength of spirit and courage which would have been an ornament in the most battle-hardened of warriors. Indeed, was she not herself a gallant warrior on the battlefield of love? She needed no more than 2 or 3 seconds to pass from a state of dismay to one of action. In one moment, all traces of amatory disarray on the couch were destroyed. "Wait! Do not knock so loud. I have a terrible... She called out in an agonized voice, addressing herself through the window to the money changer, who was storming at the wicket. Her whisper, aside, was for the grandee. "Stop running about, smacking your heels. You will hear, na? Oh, put on your shalwars. This is indecent, really. No, not that. That is my yashmak." Yeah, here they are. Get them on. Oh, you are at the wrong end. Turn them over, na? Then again through the window to her husband. In a minute. "What have I done with my slippers? I cannot find them." In a whisper to the grandee, "Hide in the chest. Quick! In half an hour, I shall get rid of him." Through the window. I am coming. By Allah, there is never a moment's peace in this house." His eyes pale with terror, the grandee crawled into the chest, seeing nothing, understanding nothing. "There is something soft in here. It is a feather bed. Get in." He lowered himself into the hot, stuffy depths. The lid closed upon him. Arzi Bibi left the chamber. The grandee began to sniffle and wriggle about in the chest. He crouched with his chin on his knees like an infant in its mother's womb. Some soft obstacle prevented him from stretching out his legs. Probably some lumpy part of the feather bed. शायद ये वो जुलग मुलाग है ना इंजी खूब नरम वाला है. He braced his back against the wall of the chest and pressed his feet into the soft lump. And Suddenly, the dark interior became alive. Careful, sir. He heard a near indignant whisper. Careful, or you will squish my belly. What words can describe the grandee's terror? He recoiled and jumped up, striking his head against the lid with a bang. Ah! What? Who is that? Ah! He ejaculated, utterly mazed with fear and prodding the darkness before him with outspread fingers. Careful, repeated the same mysterious whispering voice. You are poking your finger in my ears. Some invisible presence seized the grandee's wrists and gripped them hard. Ah! What? Cried the grandee, his teeth chattering and his body trembling as he tried to wrench himself free. Who is it? Huh? Who is it? Not a word. Not a word. They are coming. Fear me not, illustrious camelback. No harm shall come to you from me. Dazed with affright, the grandee's reason took nothing in. As Bastiki tars khorda, there followed a smart blow upon the forehead by an invisible fist. Silence. Chupku. Or by Allah, I shall use a knife upon you. The grandee lay still, not daring to stir or even breathe. And I think we shall pause it in here.